thank you again, Kathleen. Very nice. Greatly appreciated. Now, 220 years ago, on March 13th, 1802, there was a small group of lawyers and judges got together to form the Law Library Company of the city of Philadelphia, the group that would later become known as the Philadelphia Bar Association. Today, we will celebrate this landmark anniversary by first looking to the future and talking about how we can continue to engage future generations of Philadelphia lawyers. We decided there was no better group to talk about this but the next generation of our legal community leaders. During our discussions, members of the Bellevue staff will walk around and be handing out champagne. Keep those at the end so we can have a toast. And at this time, I would like to request our panel to come to the stage. I am pleased to introduce, and this is in order, Geneva Campbell Brown. She's an associate senior counsel at Cigna Corp. And lead counsel for Cigna's Foundation. Next is Jennifer L. Feden, associate at Ballot Spar. Our third member of the panel is P. Michael Jones, senior staff attorney at Philadelphia VIP and the 222 chair of the Young Lawyers Division. Thank you, Michael. Also, we have Andrew Slom, founder of the law offices of Andrew M. Slom. Andrew?
Please. Go to the seat.
I'll be seated.
Yeah.
You guys changed the word on me. Okay, I'd like to start this conversation off by asking each of the panelists to name something that you think will exist 20 years from now. And I'm going to start with you, Jennifer.
So I have maybe the boring answer and something that's already well on its way, which is not just virtual meetings and conferences, but virtual reality conferences and meetings where we'll all be in a room like this virtually.
I told some of my friends that I wouldn't get up here and talk about cryptocurrency, so I won't do that. But I do think that the integration of blockchain technology for recording documents is the future.
Okay.
So I believe that computers and laptops, the way we think about them now, won't exist, and instead everything will be computerized, including our limbs, and we'll be able to push buttons just with our fingertips instead of having to type everything onto the screen.
I hope that we'll have universal income, and I expect we'll have fractured civil war.
Okay, Michael. I'm not leading off with you in the next one. Andrew, you're up.
All right.
How do you see the legal profession changing in the next 20 years?
Well, I think if you're going to talk about the next 20 years, you have to look back to look forward. And I think we learned a lot about our profession in the past 3 years and how we were able to adapt to the pandemic. And with being able to do video conferencing pretty seamlessly, whether it's virtual closings or virtual court hearings, we've come a long way. And so in the next 20 years, I would really implore everyone in our industry to continue to push to make things more efficient in that manner and streamline the processes so that we have lower costs for our clients, so that we can do our job and make the law more accessible for everyone.
Geneva, I bet you love the idea of lower costs for clients.
I love the idea of lower costs for clients, for sure. And I also think from my perspective, particularly being in-house, that the lines between what are legal issues will start to blur more and more with what are business issues or operational issues. And so that as lawyers in our profession, it won't be enough to know the law, but we'll be expected to really think about the objectives of whatever organization we work for and really be expected to weigh in there beyond just what are the legal restrictions, but how do we move some of the missions and the goals of those organizations forward?
Michael?
I it was just touched on, but technology, I think, will no longer be creeping in. We will coexist alongside it. It will help to continue to separate the black and white until we have a finer gradient of gray. We'll be less I do a lot of drafting, so I imagine we'll be much less involved in drafting. We'll have computers doing a whole lot of that, and we will instead be focused on this greater nuances and the areas of law. Additionally, I believe that the social contract has changed significantly, or rather, it's always been a failure, and we've seen a lot of that come through. We've seen its gaps through the pandemic, and I think that there's going to be a systematic change of the social contract, and attorneys are going to be held accountable, and they're going to be the people who are going to be there to execute the new social contract, which is creating a basic living income, helping stop climate change, making people have equity and equality across the board. And I know that these have been concepts that we've had forever, but they've evolved and we have changed, and I think attorneys are the people who are going to be really held accountable for that.
Okay, cool. Then, Geneva, change the topic a little bit. What can the Bar Association do to stay relevant over the next 20 years?
Yeah, I think one thing that's important is if we start to add on to some of the great work we're already doing and really think about things like industry focused or areas of business or organizations, and be more focused not just on segments of the law itself and not just like those specific traditional practice areas that we all know, but also think about how can we really be stakeholders in industries like healthcare, like technology. How can we be even more focused on the things that, frankly, impact all of our personal lives, right? And so I don't think at this point is going to be enough for us to just know the mastery of the area of law that we learned in any particular course or we studied in any particular book. Is going to be really thinking about how can the Bar Association prepare its members to go out into all of the other aspects of society in which they live and work, and really be ambassadors for change that is specific to the industry that they find themselves in. And I'm going to try to keep it light because Michael has to come after me. So.
You know me very well.
I've learned you. It didn't take long. So.
Wes, I think you were motioning to me. Yes?
Go.
I think the way the Bar Association can remain relevant is by being there for the community. It always has been, but to continue to be there. Attorneys are at their best when they are helping the community. We are equipped to help navigate a very arcane and esoteric path, and we have those tools, and the community looks to us to help them. There are a lot of attorneys, and there are a whole lot more people who are excessively vulnerable. Technology has shown that there is a significant amount of gaps in the world, and we are able to zoom in on those. Attorneys need to be accessible, and the Bar Association has to help us be more accessible.
Jennifer, your thoughts?
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about technology, and I think that one of the ways the Bar Association can continue to be relevant is to really focus on that interconnectedness. And the more we're interfacing with technology, and we saw this in the last couple of years with the pandemic and this hybrid environment that we found ourselves in, which seems like it's going to be continuing in the future, where you have a disconnect between sort of that human connection element. And as you have younger lawyers that are coming into the profession, some of what we're losing there is this apprenticeship that has always been the core of bringing new folks up within the legal profession. And the Bar Association, through the diversity of programming that it offers and through mentorship opportunities and bringing together the legal community, is very well situated to help fill some of those gaps, especially with newer attorneys entering the profession.
Okay. Sir?
Yeah, I agree with all three of you. I think that it's really important that we focus on bringing diversity to the bar and creating opportunities for attorneys as well as clients that wouldn't have the opportunity to be represented otherwise. So, I'm fortunate enough to be involved in a couple organizations within the Bar Association and affinity groups, and I think that the bar already does a fantastic job, but I think that we need to make sure that we continue to do the work to provide opportunities to all people.
Okay. Geneva?
I think you started with me.
I started with you? I apologize. All righty, and Michael, the next one is yours. What do you think we have to do here in Philadelphia to become a more of a destination city for younger attorneys?
Articulate our legal industry more clearly. New York is a financial center. DC has politics. California has Hollywood and tech. Texas has energy. Philadelphia is not one industry. It is a number of industries. It's health sciences, telecommunications, pharmaceuticals, real estate, higher education. And what Philadelphia needs to do is to find its footing. I feel some of the towering corporations are moving closer to doing this, but the legal community really, if they want to galvanize people to stay, young law students to stay here, we have to collectively try and articulate what that industry is.
Yeah, to build off what Mike said, I think part of it as well, there's an allure that sometimes attorneys who are thinking about where to start their careers find with a New York or a DC. And Philadelphia, and there's been a lot of talk about what it means to be a Philadelphia lawyer. And there's a very strong legal network here. There's a very robust community. And you have all of the resources of a big city in Philadelphia, but also that benefit of a smaller network and really tight-knit community. And so for younger attorneys who are starting off their careers to understand that you can come here and you can be, you can have a lot of opportunities and be a bigger fish in a smaller pond and get a lot of really great experience early on is, I think, an important component of messaging to retain some of that talent here.
Yeah, I agree. I'm extremely proud to be a Philadelphia attorney, and I've lived here for 10 years now. Philadelphia attorney is obviously, it's a term, they make movies about us. It definitely has some gravitas. And so I think, we're well on our way, and that's in part due to everyone in this room. But I think going forward, it's important that we elevate, the younger attorneys out there. It could be hard to be, a younger attorney. At some point, everyone in this room was a first year. And those are some tough times. So it's important that the Bar Association can provide some support in any way that they can, whether it's through mentoring programs or through the YLD programming, just to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to have support.
And I'll add a slightly different nuance to that. So I am born and raised in Philly. And so what I think is important to promote too, sort of the personal aspect of this is an amazing place to live. I'm obviously biased, but I think it's really important. And right now we have an opportunity that we can leverage, which is that people are willing to allow for more work flex and hybrid environments. And because of that, people can live in places where their office might not necessarily be located. And so I think, for me, it was great for what I wanted to do. Philadelphia was a wonderful place for me to work in that area of law, and I found a job here, so I was able to stay. But I think there were some people like me, to all of the other points, that to the extent there was something that wasn't an opportunity for them years ago, it now can be a great place to really plant roots, spend their personal time, and they can still take on a job wherever they need to. So I think it's a really good opportunity to think about the scopes of all of our practices and really try to let people know how amazing the city is that we live in.
I started this one.
I thought you had something else to add. You looked up and you went like,
No, Geneva said it perfectly.
Okay, good enough. Then I'm going to go back to Jennifer. What sets the current generation of young lawyers apart from older practitioners? And conversely, what do you think is different about the current generation of law students as compared with current practitioners?
Sure. So I think that one of the things that, when we think about the legal profession, and it is often a profession that's grounded in tradition and can be slower to change, and there's been a lot of change, and we heard a little bit about it today over, in the past 20 years, 10 years, and we've seen acceleration of change with recent technology. And I think that, with the younger generation, there is this creative-minded, innovative mentality around, challenging some of the ways things have been traditionally been done. And that's not necessarily new, right? But I think that this sort of willingness to adapt to new technologies and, look for these new efficiencies is something that the younger generation has grabbed onto very well, and we'll continue to push that forward. On the converse side of that, I think the older generation of attorneys was very, very strong at building relationships and personal connections. And at the same time, as younger lawyers have really grabbed hold of technology, oftentimes it's let me send an email or let me send a text message and not pick up that phone, not have that casual conversation. And that, I think, is something that folks who've been practicing for longer do very well. And it is, in terms of getting the results for clients, making that phone call goes a very, very long way.
I think it's important to remember that the younger generation grew up on technology. We had computers in our elementary school classes. So, I think the younger attorneys are much more likely to be savvy with legal research and writing, and a lot less likely to walk into a law library. So I think it really has to do with, intuition of the younger generation, and I'm admittedly can lose my patience with my parents when it comes to technology, so I'm sure that transfers into law firm life as well. And then I think the other half of it is the significant financial stress that the younger generation has because of the cost of law school these days and the cost of college these days. That not to say it wasn't expensive back in the day, but it's a burden now, and so that's why I think you're seeing a lot of lawyers getting married later in life, having kids later in life. But I think it's important that employers keep that in mind, that there is this other kind of looming burden that you might not see on the surface, but it's there for pretty much everyone.
Well, first, I'm happy that I'm still considered in the younger generation. There are a few people in this room who've known me for a few decades now, and the backache I had this morning made me feel like I'm ready for the 70 club. But I will say, to the extent I fit within the younger generation, I think one thing that comes to mind for me is that we have thought about what it means to feel secure and safe, and also what it means to feel fulfilled in a very different way. And I think those are two really important factors that are, perhaps a little more unique to people who fall within our age group. For the former, I think, we, grew up at a time that has been very tumultuous. Change has come at us quick and fast. And sometimes it has felt very difficult to find our footing and really get our sea legs with, the way society has evolved in such a short period of time. And so I think the way that we think about, something like security or safety, it's not working at a job for 40 years, right? It's something more than that, right? It's caring about, who we are, where we are, it's caring about, the work that we do. And I think we happen to be very mission driven. And so I was talking to a colleague earlier, and, it's like, something I don't think people anticipated, but, you have the Great Resignation. And I think part of that is because, people are really looking for something specific, and they want to be excited when they wake up in the morning to go to work. And I think that our generation at this point will really be forceful when it comes to making sure that our work is matching up with our values, matching up with what we think is important for our friends and our family. And we're really at a disadvantage if we're not catering to, I think, that holistic self and thinking about wellness for the younger generation.
Thanks, Geneva.
Did I steal your answer?
Yeah, you did, and everyone did, but it's, I wrote tread lightly here. But I think a lot of younger attorneys now, older attorneys, when I started going through law school, all my professors were like, you have to pay your dues, you have to wait, you have to do things. And younger attorneys now don't want to wait, they don't want to pay their dues, they're innovative, they want to move fast, they know what they want work-life balance, they see the efficiencies that need to be changed, they have values that they care about, and without those things, rather, are super important to them, and that is going to drive them. And I don't dare assume what it was like for a young attorney 50, 60, 70 years ago, but I can assume that that the culture of saying, openly feeling comfortable and saying, this is the change that needs to happen, I want to be the change that happens, is probably very different.
I want to be the change that happens. I think if there's a takeaway, that is pretty cool. No, because I was sitting here thinking, as a young associate, I thought the best resource I ever had was to walk into somebody who was more senior's office and glean from them information, as opposed to maybe using technology. And many times it was literally just sitting and listening and hearing something that I never heard it that way before. But your generation seems to say, I want to create the new way as opposed to find the old way. Would that be fair?
Totally. I mean, I would say so. I mean, at Philadelphia VIP, that seems to be the way.
Yeah, no, I think that is the way. I think it's important to, for sure, learn from more seasoned lawyers. But I would think it's a two-way relationship in us teaching too. And I think that that's an important element, not just younger lawyers being willing to just sit there and listen and take it all in, but we're going to push and we're going to try to move the ball forward in our own unique way.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's just important. It's important to have mentors, obviously, and to listen to your superiors. But there just seems to be something about our generation that wants to be innovative and has a yearning to create. I think that's why you see workspaces that are WeWorks. It's kind of the same thing, where you can kind of have different conversations with different people and come up with different solutions to problems than what you would typically think is the absolute one way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Geneva's point that, I think younger lawyers are going to sit there and they're not going to be passive, right, in terms of listening and taking in this information. But I do think, to what you said, that there is still that component that's very important of learning from observation and being part of that discussion in the hallway where you learn something because you're talking about something by happenstance with an older partner or something like that you wouldn't have picked up if you were just sitting there and emailing and not having those casual interactions.
Okay. Now the final question, I'm going to switch it around. You don't get to be the younger attorney anymore. You get to be the older attorney 20 years from now. What advice are you going to give your younger self? And we'll start with you, Jennifer, so we started this.
Yeah, sure. So I would tell myself to be flexible, be creative. We've talked a lot about how quickly things are changing, and that's, 20 years from now, I want to say, remember when you were sitting back in those shoes 20 years ago, and, remember that those people that now are those younger attorneys that have these new ideas and these creative ideas and maybe ideas that seem crazy are, to listen to those and to be open to that and stay flexible.
I'd say just to take a step back and take a breath when you need to. There's so much chaos and stress that we deal with as attorneys, and there's good days, there's bad days. But at the end of the day, we have a job to do, and that's to help people, and to keep that in mind at the end of the day that we're doing good work, and there's always a new day where we can go out there and help our clients to the best of our abilities.
I'd say enjoy the journey. I think over time, as you become more seasoned, you get more responsibility, and there are more things that are grabbing for your time. And I can already feel myself, in addition to my backache, but can feel myself, making less time for things like this, and for, things that are really edifying for me personally because of all of the responsibilities I might have at my day job. So I would definitely say enjoy the journey, think about coming to events like this, the meaning of, being on that slide one day in the 50 Club, really focus on things that will continue to build you up and refill your cup.
Stretch is the first thing I'd probably tell myself to do. Not just because of Geneva's backache, but my legs have been cramping all day. But also just remember the scale of things. I think day to day, you get so bogged down in the work that you are missing the big picture. And if you're able to zoom out a little bit and remember exactly what it is you're doing, I'm doing, that you will feel less anxious, and you will be more happy.
Less anxious and more happy. That's a wonderful way to end this panel. I would like to thank Mike, Geneva, Andrew, and Jennifer for your insights. It has been eye-opening for me, at least a little bit. So thank you very much.